Okay, so good evening, Realty Pros. And we are here this evening for our new agent training. So it's called new agent training, but everyone can learn from this, whether you're a new agent or you are a seasoned agent. You can learn from the trainings that we get on Thursday evening. And tonight we are privileged to have again Angela Skipper with us, who is going to be sharing with us um, some more on the seller's side. Also, too, something else that we wanted to kind of throw out there and give you guys opportunity. If at some time during the presentation you have questions, you're welcome to ask your questions. But if you would prefer, you can also put your questions in the chat and we'll monitor the chat and make sure that we get your questions asked so that we can get an answer, because I'm sure if you have the question, then there's probably someone else who has the question as well. So make sure you are engaged, make sure you ask your questions, and if you're unable to, at least put it in the chat and we'll make sure that it gets asked, okay? So again, thank you, Angela, for being here with us. And we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna allow you to start your training. You can take it from here.
Thank you, Anita. I appreciate that. And thank you everyone for attending these trainings. I think they're great, and I'm uh, even more pleased that they're recorded, because I know that we always don't have time to attend them. But at the same time, when we're in attendance here, we want to go back and listen and, take better notes and just try to, retain some of this information. So I do want to, continue with the conversation we had a few weeks ago regarding listings, not just listings, but winning listings. And I just want to recap a little bit for those who didn't, who weren't present for the last one, a little bit about what we talked about, and then I'll elaborate from there. We talked basically, I always reference going back to the basics. So many times when we get frustrated or discouraged, we want to reinvent the wheel. We want to come up with innovative and unique ways of, running our business when, in my opinion, the basics are the best. And they're always there, readily available for us to utilize them. Once we've mastered those things, then we can be a little more innovative and creative with how we run our business. But some of the things we talked about last time regarding listings, I mentioned mindset is very important. It's where we get our motivation from. Preparation is definitely important. We need to use the tools and resources that we, have readily available to us. They help qualify us, as realtors. And then, just taking action. Without that, we won't really have many listings. So, taking action provides that opportunity to secure an appointment, which in essence leads to a listing. But just to kind of elaborate on some of those things, we talked about motivation, and that leads to preparation. So I appreciate those on the call. It definitely demonstrates your motivation, and willingness to want to learn and, gather more information that you can do your job, more effectively. So I want to emphasize, some of the things that we need to do prior to that listing. We didn't hone in on that too much last time, but I do want to touch on it briefly. And that is our pre-appointment preparation. This is going to be a lot of preparation talk. I kind of want to get down to the details with all the different ways we can be prepared, because what does that do? Being prepared helps build our confidence, but what it also does, it qualifies us for our potential prospects, the ones who become our clients. So as far as our pre-appointment prep, I'll talk a little bit about on prospecting. And this is fine to lead this up because we're about to dive right into this, but I just want to remind you, we have to be prepared to prospect. It's our best way to generate business and the leads that are actually going to get us those listings. That's our ultimate goal, is to determine and find these leads. Porterhouse makes, they make so many resources available to us. You know, we have Boomtown now, where we can generate leads there. We have HomeSnap. We're all given business cards, and there's so many other things that we have that can help us to prospect. This is where we will generate leads. It will determine their motivation, actually, and then we want to qualify them. So we want to stay consistent, we want to stay persistent and motivated to try to generate those leads so that we can secure some of these appointments. So, all right, so we've got the prospecting thing down. We have to continue to do that while we are obtaining these leads and these appointments. But once we've done all this prospecting and we've gathered these potential leads, what we want to do is we want to secure the appointment. So I want to talk a little bit about and elaborate a little bit about what we talked about last time. And this is what I'm going to call our pre-listing preparation. And this is what we're going to do, or what I would suggest you to do before the appointment. The goal, in essence, is to get the appointment. We've done all these things. We generate leads. Now, what do we do with them? Okay. So when it comes to listings, we have to secure that appointment. And this is what we talked about last time. I'm glad you have this up. So we talked about the pre-listing prep. And, you know, what I like about this, the information that the porters have put in Brokermint, is that you can use them in many different ways. And I had suggested some different ways to use them last week. But in this case, if you're not familiar with this form, you can find it in Brokermint. If I'm not mistaken, this is under working with sellers. Yep. And this is our pre-listing prep. So if you go ahead and click on that, there is a letter there that you can use as well. It's so many different tools and things for us to use. But it starts off with this letter. And if we scroll down the second page, this is, you are the most important person in this process. You can use this different ways. I've read through it thoroughly. You can send this to a lead and have them fill it out, especially if you have secured the appointment. But typically what I like to do to try to engage and to build rapport with them is I use these documents to have a one-on-one conversation with them. I try to gather as much information as possible. Again, this is pre-appointment prep. So this document is incredible. So what it does, it allows you to gather all this information so that you are prepared when you make it to that appointment. But anyway, the pre-listing prep and the listing intake form, again, use that however you want to use it, but it allows you to gather all the details you need. Why is this important? When you go to that appointment, you may be competing with other real estate agents. You can be competing with some of your other colleagues. But the thing is, you want to come in and be the problem solver. You want to satisfy all their needs, all their wants. What am I looking for in an agent? If you use this form properly, you are finding out all the information that you need in order to go there and satisfy all their needs and their wants. So we definitely want to use this form. Just to, like I said, it's a great way to secure the listing. The goal is to win the listing. If you're not using this, it's unfortunate, but it is an excellent tool to try. In addition to this intake form, I like the conversation aspect of it, because while I'm asking this, I'm also building rapport. So, you're asking about, typical information that you need, their address, all types of information, but it also tells you their financials. Do they have one mortgage, two? You gather so much information from these two forms that it's a sure way to go in there and to satisfy what it is they're looking for in an agent. The previous, you'd even ask, what are you looking for in an agent? So if they're telling you exactly what you want, how are you unable to go in there and not give them what they're asking when they've pretty much given you the blueprint? So we definitely want to use that. Additionally, in Brokermint, and you can stay on this page for now, but in Brokermint, we also have access to, once I gather this information, I then take it and I go right to Brokermint and I create a transaction. After I've gathered all this information, you've set the appointment, but I create a transaction. We don't have to go through all of the details as far as doing this, but in Brokermint, when you create the transaction, it allows you to immediately take all that information you've gathered. You've already set up the stage for yourself to be able to send property disclosures. I mentioned that last time. I do like sending property disclosures to my potential sellers, because what it does is it's giving me more information. They are already getting familiar with my platform because I'm going to take this listing. And it not only does it make them familiar with it, it gives me the info. They're familiar with how to sign and things like that. If they have any issues, when you go to that listing appointment, that might be your only chance to interact, answer questions, gather whatever you need in order to secure this listing. So when you go to the appointment, you already have the property disclosures. They've already know about signing, and I'm going to tell you in a minute how that prepares you. So in addition to having those disclosures sent over to the seller for them to complete, I also have I go in and I complete the listing agreement. I fill in everything that I need so that when I go to that appointment, at the end of the appointment, what's the goal? The goal is to secure the listing. And so you have to have that document prepared. I have all the information I need from the seller intake form and any other questions that I ask them during our pre-listing conversation. But so we have the property disclosures completed already. These folks already feel like they're working with you. You're already working for them. And you're so prepared when you go in there. So the listing agreement's done, along with your agency disclosures. Have all that pre-filled out so that when you go in at the end of your presentation, you have that moment where they're like, where do I sign? And you're already prepared to finalize the deal. So, and to win that listing. Another thing you'll want to do pre-listing, pre-appointment is to, we talked about this, I think, in Bright, is for you to complete the CMA. That's part of your presentation. So these are things you're going to need to prepare yourself. And it's interesting enough for anyone who was on the call earlier today, Steve from Bright actually went over how to create a CMA. So if you're not familiar with it, we now have it on recording. And then there are also additional classes that you can take. But one thing I like about always attending these trainings is that Steve mentioned some things. I know how to create a CMA, but he always mentions things, or a lot of these trainings mention things that I may have forgotten or that I need to be reminded of. But sometimes there's a shortcut or a tool that assists me with being a little bit more productive. So one takeaway from this morning's training is he was showing us how to customize a default template for our CMA. And I feel like that's very valuable because sometimes we waste a lot of time in doing things over and over again. And to personalize even our CMA, to insert, our bio and things like that, I think it's very valuable, and it allows you to build rapport. It allows you to share more of who you are to your client. So they get to know you better. You've built the rapport. They feel like they're already working with you as you're going through the process. So definitely listen to the recording from this morning if you missed it. And then it's the listing presentation. Now we have that here in Brokermint. You can pull it up if you want, but I'm going to kind of zip through this. The listing presentation touches on all the things that we just talked about. So I recommend that you go in, review it. I know a lot of the times you talk about Curtis and how he knows the buyer broker agreement inside and out, backwards and forwards. Well, get to the point where you can do a listing presentation without some of these slides if you don't have access to them. But definitely you can go in and customize it. For those who are new, you might not have, if you want to scroll through this a little bit. Yeah, so it starts off telling about our brokerage, which I think is very important. Once you go past the brokerage, it doesn't say anything about the agent. So if you want to customize a page to insert, to share a little bit about you, your bio and things, I would definitely recommend that. But then it moves on to testimonials. And, if you're new, you say, well, I don't have any testimonials. I don't really have any clients yet who can, tell about their experience. Well, there's testimonials here that are straight from Porterhouse. You are a part of Porterhouse, so you can definitely use these. You can also have colleagues and family members kind of chime in and share some information about you. But if you scroll down a little bit more, after we get through the testimonials, I don't want to go through the whole, do the whole listing presentation, but I don't want anyone to think from my last time talking that I don't go through this. I do use the listing presentation. I just pull certain things out that I use at different times. So, going over agency is very important. You'll discuss that on your presentation. Can you scroll down a little bit more, Anita? Okay, so this is the form that I use quite often. And when I say I use it often, I use it after I've done the full presentation, because what it does, it allows my clients to follow along with everything that I'm doing from beginning to end. But in essence, all the information that we've gathered at this point from that pre-listing, you can use it to customize this a little bit more and to meet their needs. In addition to this the listing presentation, Brokermint has scripts that we can use. So another tool that you'll want to do to prepare yourself for your listing is to kind of go into Brokermint and review those scripts. They are objection handling scripts. So once you've done a great job presenting all the information, you've given them some suggestions on pricing based on the extensive CMA you've created for them. But the scripts are very good, because in the event that there was, the seller is still not certain as to whether they want to move forward, you've reviewed those objection handling. Actually, if we can see a couple, I don't know if you guys have gone in and actually, that's it right there. And I'll just read the first 2 or 3, but these are so common. And if you don't know answers to these, they're right here at your fingertips. So you might not have access to say, hey, what do I do in this case? The very first one, will you reduce your commission? When you do your listing presentation, based on what the porters have put together for this brokerage, there's so much value in there that you're already showing them, why they want to work with you. Not only that, but they already, like I said, they're building that relationship. You're already doing work for them. And these are things that you want to review. You may know the answers. You may have different answers for these, but these are definitely some great suggestions on how to respond. Will you reduce your commission? Will you reduce your commission? There's never really a no, but it gives you a way to respond. Do I reduce my commission? Never. But that might come across a little harsh. However, this is a softer way of responding when someone has that question. I want to find a house before putting mine on the market. That is something that I deal with a lot. And that's a very challenging thing for a seller very scary sometimes, to know that they have to sell their property, but we can, ensure all the things that we're doing to protect them, and then practice these scripts so that you are prepared to respond to these types of questions and objections with confidence. Not, we don't want to be fumbling around. We want to know the answers to these. And that's why practicing our scripts is very important. After we've done all of this, we can come on out of this, Anita. After we've done all of this, I don't know, you should feel very confident. You should feel very ready to do a listing presentation. I remember when I joined Porterhouse, there were a few people who would say, oh, I'm a little nervous. Can I do, maybe Jasmine can do this with me. And even though the porters do make themselves available to do that, these are things that you can do to start preparing yourself to, have that level of confidence to be able to try to secure a listing. Sometimes it's spur of the moment. You don't have, the appointment is not something that it may happen right then and there. And these are things that if you practice doing these, you'll definitely be ready when the time comes. So after we've done all of this, we have, done the preparation to get leads. We've gotten the leads. Now we've done the pre-listing. We're ready for that appointment. Okay, we've done all this. We've gotten the appointment. Okay. We've done all the homework that we needed to do. But once you have that appointment, you're now at the property. What are you going to do? So you've done all the things to prepare. The first thing is you're going to be confident. If you've done these few things, these are not things that take you weeks to do. These can be done over the weekend or over a few hours just to try to prepare. But you're very confident. And it's the actual appointment where, I talked about when you're getting leads, we qualify them by asking all those questions. We're qualifying them. Do we want to work with them? We're qualifying them to be our client. When you go to that appointment, they are now qualifying you as their realtor. So it's your time to shine. It's your time to show them you have what it takes and they don't want to work with anyone else. So after you've gone there and you've impressed them, you're at the appointment, you do want to tour the home. I recommend taking pictures. Because what it does is, even if you leave there, you want to gather as much information as you can, because it will also help you with some of the other points I have coming up, as far as coming up with suggestions for them to, either improve the property so that it'll definitely be ready for the market. But the goal in the appointment is to get the listing. We're confident. We know they're trying to qualify us. We've toured the home. When you're touring the home, continue to build the rapport. If you recognize things that they've done, praise, send praises, compliments, and things like that. That it actually helps, create some warm and fuzzies, and it helps, you to continue to build a relationship with them, and it makes them feel good. And then you actually have the time where you sit down after you've gathered some information to do your listing presentation. The listing presentation, like I mentioned before, it adds so much value. It makes you more credible, because they see, oh, look who they're working with. Look at the things that they're promising to us. And it sets an expectation for the seller. Others may come in and do these presentations, and I don't know what they're presenting to them, but just in reviewing the one that we have available to us, there's nothing really more that you can add other than to personalize it. It has all the things you need to secure your listing. But again, continue to build rapport. The goal, as always, is to get the highest price in the quickest time with the least amount of hassle. That's what you're trying to deliver. And you're demonstrating that with all the homework that you've done to pull together such a great presentation. And then at the very end of your presentation, you are going to pull out that listing agreement. The goal is not just to get the appointment. The goal is to get the appointment and to secure the listing as soon as possible. So once you're there and you have that document, do they know? Are they already prepared to sign? They already know how to sign. And in the event that they are not prepared to sign at that moment, you're prepared, because you have the document there. Remember, we filled it out during our pre-listing homework. It's ready to go. We can make changes. We've got our computer there. We can make whatever, small changes that we need to make. But for the most part, you're ready to close. Let's say they have some questions. Some of the ones we talked about earlier, some of these little challenging questions, you're already prepared to answer those with confidence, and then to get them to sign. And again, the goal is to get them to sign that listing agreement so you can continue, so you can start working for them right away. So because you were confident, because you did all of your homework and you were prepared, they signed the listing agreement. They don't want to work with anyone else. They are very pleased with your presentation and all the promises that you made. So then that moves on to the actual listing. Congratulations, we got the listing, right? You can leave this up because I'll touch on this. But before we go into preparing the property, I mentioned this form before. You can give these forms whatever name that you want. I noticed that this reminds me of like a board game. Visuals are nice for some, but still the information is there. If you look through the top row, though, I call it the first tier. This is where we start. This gives them a blueprint of this is what the process looks like. It can be overwhelming to some if you knew all the details that go along with each of these spaces here. But evaluate your needs. You did that at the pre-listing. Set the right price. We did that. You created your CMA. You've already prepared that to give them a range or a price that you would sell the property for. And then you readdressed it at the actual listing presentation. Determine the time frame. That's actually coming up. And then sign disclosure. So most of what you need to do, it's already finished by the time they've signed that document, correct? So in going into the property, does anyone have any questions before I continue? Because I want to go into property prep, and I've said quite a bit. Are there any chat questions?
Nothing in the chat right now, Angela.
All right.
But yes, thank you.
Okay, so let me just continue through with preparing the property. Now, I know, some people wonder, do I stage the property? Do I not stage the property? When I think about property prep, I call it staging. Whether it there can be no cost staging. To me, staging is preparing the home for the buyer's eye. And all my listings are staged. And it's not necessarily that I have professional credentials, but we are realtors. We know what sells and we know what delays sales. So you go in with what expertise you have, but we basically are looking at it from the buyer's eye. We're being that buyer for them when we toured the property. But we need to evaluate the property. We need to check the exterior. We need to check the interior. There are times where your sellers will not be able to spend a lot of money on the repairs, the different things that they would need to do in order to put the property in its best condition. But what we can do that doesn't cost is we can clean, we can declutter. And then there are some staging techniques and things that you can do. Sometimes removing furniture is a great way to stage. Moving furniture around. I've gone into listings where, there's not a lot of money. We have to move quickly. I recommend items that they don't want to keep, to remove them. And then we'll move furniture from one room to the other. Not so much me, but my recommendation might be, they may have a lot of furniture in one room and very little furniture in another. Just some small suggestions in order to show off the real estate. So many times we have so much clutter, not to offend our seller, but what I usually say is we want to show off the real estate, because sometimes if I go from room to room and I keep saying declutter, I try to, twist it a little bit to say, I can't see enough of what they're purchasing. And it's another way to get them to either move some things around or to remove some of the things from the property. But again, tour the home, take pictures. When we did that, that gives me an idea on what we're going to do as far as the suggestions. But anyway, evaluate the property. After evaluating the property, I make my list of things that I would suggest or recommend. Some of these are maintenance things. If there are holes in walls, cracks, rooms may need to be painted, maybe some floors need to be cleaned, things like that. I'll make a list of the things, but before I present my suggestions to them, now you notice I don't share my suggestions, at least not all of them, during the listing presentation, because part of the value that I add is this is a service that I provide to my clients, not to my prospecting clients. So now that the listing agreement is signed, after I've evaluated the property, I help them to determine their budget. And that's when I can find out, do they have nothing to spend? Do they have a budget of $2,000 to prepare the home? Is their budget $10,000? So a lot of the times that budget is small. In most cases for my listings, they've been, I would say, under $2,000. Based on the amount they're willing to invest in preparing the home, I help them to focus on the areas that will bring them, that will attract most buyers. And I always offer free suggestions, things that free meaning they don't cost them anything. They don't cost anyone anything. But I offer the suggestions for improvement after we've determined the budget, and we try to stay within that budget. Next is preparing the home to sell. And, always have them imagine it from a buyer's eye. If you're a buyer and what you like to look at, that's pretty much, we have to take out the personal preferences. And I help them to keep things neutral. Because, I'll run into clients who will say, oh, well, look at, this is my new living room set. I just bought it a year ago and it's what I've always wanted, but it might not be what I think most buyers want. So there's some few suggestions I may give to try to keep things neutral and take a lot of the personality out of presenting the property. Next, so next, there's another form in Brokermint. Can we go back to the main screen so I can show this one, if we can pull it up? But it's under the buyer seller. Actually, no, it's the open house checklist. So You can use the open house checklist to, if you say, well, I don't have the buyer eye, I'm not sure what they should do. Do I need to hire an expert? You don't necessarily need to do that immediately, but there, yes, that open house checklist. You can use the open house checklist to also prepare. If you're preparing the home for an open house, you're essentially preparing it to go on the market. So if you're not sure what to do, use the tools that are available. Now, this here does tell you what to do as far as more specific marketing, how to run an open house. But if you scroll all the way down, I don't know if this is the actual sheet. Okay, so this is again just helping you prepare for the open house. But in essence, all the things that you're doing, these evaluating the property, getting it ready, and what I'm calling the staging is going to prepare for a really nice open house. It'll have the property ready for you. And there's one other thing I do after we do that, and we figure out, well, we know your budget. These are the things that we're going to do to prepare the property. The next thing is to create a timeline. Now, in creating a timeline, I'm determining when the house is going to go on the market. How much time do they need to do these repairs? And it also helps me to determine if they are going to put it in coming soon status. I know exactly, thank you, this is good. I know exactly when it's coming on. So again, after evaluating what they can spend and what needs to be done to the property, the timeline is very important. And when I say that, there's several timelines that we're creating. There is a timeline that we're creating as to what are we doing between now and when the house will be ready, to be placed on the market. And then that gives them, how much time do I have to have the carpet shampooed or to replace the carpet and things like that. We then start creating this timeline or these deadlines to get these things done so that we actually are going active when we're expecting to. And then in addition, I usually give them a little homework. So this is perfect. So we have here, we've met all these needs, determine the time frame is here. Sign our disclosure. I call that the first tier. And I tell them that this is their most important responsibility will come from that first tier. Those are things where they're really hands-on. Once we just get through that first tier, they can kind of take a break from all that responsibility. That's when I'm going to take over with my team, meaning the lenders, the other agent, the title company, and we're going to start doing things. So not title companies are a little too soon, but right now, once the house goes on the market, I'm doing all, most of the work in trying to secure a contract. So we move on to the next tier. We're implementing custom marketing. We talk about that in our listing presentation. It's well defined for you there. Prepare your property for sale. We've done that, talking about the staging and what we've done. We have a timeline. We know exactly what's going on here. So these are my tasks, but I'm already prepared to tackle these with the things that we just accomplished. Show to potential buyers. We're ready. I'm ready for my open house. I'm ready to show it to buyers and then get showing feedback. I highly recommend showing feedback. So as we go through each step in this process, I'm communicating very frequently with my clients. Even when nothing's happening, I'm letting them know, hey, if there's an update, I'm providing them. I don't necessarily give all feedback as it comes in, but I usually prepare it together. And if we have to use feedback to make some adjustments and changes, this is what we'll do after the property has gone on the market. But then we just go through this entire process. And it's a tool that they can use to follow along and know what's going on ahead of time. Now, I do give them some homework once they hand over the keys to me, and now I'm doing my part. That's when I tell them now is the time to prepare to move. They've done all these things to prepare the home, but there's a lot that has to take place between now and when they close. Sometimes that's, in less than 30 days. And then sometimes it's, can be a little longer. But in Brokermint, there is a moving day planner checklist. I believe it's in the buyer seller, the combo buyer seller. Let's see. Do we have that on there? Yes. Can you scroll down? All this information is really good too. And that's if you have a seller who's also buying. I like this document for that as well. You can keep going. It's towards the bottom, I think. There it is, right there. So preparing your home to sell, imagine you were the buyer. Actually, let me touch on this because this is not it, but this is another one I have here in my on my list. Preparing your home to sell. This helps them to determine things from the buyer's eye. So if I'm providing this document to them, then not only have I shared these things with them, this kind of validates them and it gives them something to, look forward to as far as this, these are the things that I can do. These are the things that don't cost me money. And, then there are some things that we can do for hire. But if you scroll down a little bit, I don't know if the moving one is on this one. Is it at the bottom? It might not be. Okay. Well, in Brokermint, there is, it might be, keep going. There it is, right there. Okay. So back when we we're doing the staging, that other form was perfect for that, to give them a visual and to see what things can you do, on this list. But when it comes to you've handed over the keys to me, now what's happening? I give them this. So we have a new timeline. These are the things that my clients focused on while I'm focusing on selling their property and making sure it goes to closing. So it just gives details on things that they should be doing, packing up the property. It's a lot of valuable information to use. So I make this available to them. So while I'm communicating with them throughout the process, I'm giving them things to do. And we're working together because this is going to take that, one of the things we said highest price, shortest time, and we said the least hassle. Well, if I do an excellent job, I sell the home and then they're so stressed and overwhelmed at the end because they haven't prepared themselves for this move. Well, their overall experience might not feel like, well, I had a great experience, even though it was nothing that I did or the agents in the actual transaction closed well. We want to make the overall experience a satisfying one for them. So I kind of babysit these a little bit. I might call them and say, hey, where are you? Are you, the 4 to 6 weeks away or the 3 to, I'll reach out to them and say, hey, how are things going? And it sets a reminder for them. Oh, I forgot I was supposed to be doing that. Thanks for reminding me. So that when we're closer to the end of the transaction, sometimes we hit a few bumps and there's some things that we got to kind of work some kinks out. But this is something that we don't want them to stress over as well. So I try to stay on task with this a little bit so that their overall experience, I want them to be at that closing table and I want them to look back and feel like this was effortless. There's not a lot of stress. Moving is stressful, and if I'm prepared to take the listing, I can help them prepare themselves to, have a nice smooth transition from this location to their new home. So I definitely kind of stay on this a little bit because I think it is important. I don't really want anything negative to come out of the transaction. I know that there's some things that we can't help, but this in essence definitely helps them to stay on target and to, try to make sure that things will run smoothly in addition to us working the transaction and the whole process. But it does keep them very busy. After we've gotten to this part, we're at closing. We've gone through all tiers of the process, from the title company now getting involved and, whatever final things we have to negotiate at the end. We're pretty much there. So this is what the form that I use to coordinate the transaction through closing. It's very valuable. I think we have other tools in Brokermint that I'm not sure if it's on the buyer side. They, spell this out in linear form. You can play with these same, tasks and put them in list form if it'll help you to, to use this as a tool. But like I said, there's different things in Brokermint that we can use. I'm trying my best to utilize all of them. But every time I go in, I find something new. So, just be creative with it. We can be creative with how we're using the tools that are already presented to us, before we try to reinvent the wheel. This sums up most of, me trying to elaborate. I do want to bring up one other thing though, because we touched on prospecting. In addition to the trainings that we have and the access we have to, the Brokermint platform, I think it's PG Carr, offers a class that's free. It's called Prospecting, Identifying Your Target Market in Bright Public Records. These I think are in-person classes, but they are free for those who have the time to attend those. But they actually have that class in July 11th. I think it's at 11 a.m. Again, it's an in-person class called Prospecting, Identifying Your Target Market in Bright Public Records. It kind of piggybacks on some of the things that we talked about when Steve talks from Bright, but I think that that's pretty interesting that you guys might find useful. And then one other class I noticed in with PG Carr was an in-person class. It's called Manage and Monitor Listing Activity, and that's on the same day, July 11th. So I don't know if, if anyone ever has any classes and things that you stumble across, share it in the WhatsApp. I think is very helpful. You guys share a lot of things that I think is very valuable and benefits me. So I just wanted to share that if it's something that you're interested in. Does anybody have any questions, or is there anything else I can elaborate on?
Hi, Angela. And something else that I thought about when you were talking, or something that I've done when you were going through the process of kind of walking through the property and helping the seller to see the house as the prospective buyer would see the home. I have, and you also suggested taking pictures, just preliminary pictures at that time. And sometimes it's helpful to take a picture of a particular space and kind of allow the seller to see that space, and they can see that, ooh, this looks a little bit crowded. Probably if I took this out, that would probably be better. Or if maybe I put this plant over here in this corner or something like that. I've done that before also, because sometimes, because a seller lives in the home, it just becomes what is just everyday normal to them. Whereas if they maybe see it outside of actually living in it themselves, then they can kind of see also what you see and what a prospective buyer would see.
Absolutely. I agree. So I like taking the pictures so that absolutely is a great way to show them. I had a listing a few months ago and I took the pictures, and when I brought some of the suggestions up to the seller, it's like he had no idea that these things existed. I said, you have a crack in your gutter. There's some cracks in your foundation, and just going through, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I pulled out the pictures, and when they look worse in the pictures because I'm zoomed in on these imperfections. And definitely, taking a picture of a room, it does show you things from another perspective. So I highly recommend that. Another reason I can tell you that the pictures are great in the before is that after they've made the changes that you have suggested, and you take another picture and you show them side by side, they feel like they have, done something really big, because it may be night and day. I had a listing that we had talked about in Virginia, and there was so much clutter and dirt in the home. And I think I talked to Jasmine, and she says, do you have any pictures? Which I'm still trying to see. You know what? I didn't take as many pictures as I liked, because I don't know, it felt like it was a little embarrassing because there was so much. And I can tell you, I didn't take them because there were people there as well. And, I didn't want them necessarily in the pictures, but the pictures, to even use them for a before and after, they help, show what kind of realtor you are, showing that this is what I helped this person with. And a lot of the times these don't cost anything because they are mere suggestions. So I completely agree that the taking the picture and showing it to them is definitely something to kind of get their attention when it's difficult, for them to see. So many of us, we go through our own homes every day and we don't see those things as well. We just so used to seeing them. But definitely, I would definitely recommend taking the pictures.
Right. Yes. Any more questions? Any more suggestions, perhaps, that anyone may have? So how many of us use what I've learned from Angela today is that Angela is successful because she's not trying to reinvent the wheel. She's not trying to come up with tools that that are original to her. She's using what we have, and she made it obvious just by using the tools that are available to us in Brokermint that we really have everything that we need. We can be the professionals, or we can show ourselves as the professionals that we are. And we can go in and we can do a listing presentation that would be impressive to anyone. So I really like that Angela gets into Brokermint and every resource available to her that is helpful for the task that she has, that is she's facing. She uses every resource available. So, and we appreciate so much also her sharing these things with us as well. Um, like I said, she's been successful because she uses what's available to her. So we want to keep that in mind also, and kind of don't be scared to go in Brokerman and just look around, you know, because you'll be pleasantly surprised, I guess, at all the resources that we have there. Is there anything that anyone else would like to share? Any other questions that you may have?
Well, Anita, somebody put here, it's best to have the same color paint throughout. And I definitely agree with that. When, well, I usually want to check. Sometimes they just want to say, I'm going to paint this room. And we think, oh, great. That, bright orange and purple room might not attract most buyers. And when they say, oh, don't worry, I'm going to paint that room, I usually try to get a little more information because then when I come back and the whole room's bright yellow, I'm like, okay, that's not what I wanted you to do. So to try to be a little more intentional, give some suggestions, pick which paint you would prefer and give them 1, 2, and 3 options. Keep it in, or maybe ask to see what they're going to do first, because I've seen people go and spend their money to do something that I don't know if it made it better. But, definitely the neutral colors work. The whole house doesn't need to be painted. I recommend bringing a magic eraser to all your listing presentations. Even if your gift is a box of magic erasers, they work wonders. I've seen rooms where people have had pets, walls are dirty, that magic eraser, and I'll even demonstrate it right in the house, just wipe it right off. And they're like, oh, I need these. And so I give them the whole box and they're erasing all the dirt and, scuffs all over the house. So they truly are magic. I love them. All my clients get them if they don't get at the listing presentation. My buyers, they get them in a basket with some other things that I leave at the property as well. So, but definitely recommend them.
Okay, that's a good idea also, kind of a pre-listing gift, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea too. Very inexpensive, but great idea. And it helps you to be more personalized also. That's something that they'll remember.
Well,
Okay.
Anita, another thing that I have noticed, so there's actually a property in the neighborhood where I live that's on the market, and my name is not on the sign out in front. And so, it's unfortunate. We can't win them all, but this house was listed for $490. And I thought that probably wasn't the best price for the house. But, be careful with your CMAs and make sure you are doing your homework. Look at the pictures of the other properties that you're using as comps. If you're not just using the public record and the information and, the things that the property has as far as bedrooms and square footage. But this house actually shows really well. It's just so much stuff and furniture that's dated. And long story short, the house for $490 was on the market for almost a month in this market. And I thought, wow, what's happening? So they reduced it to $450. I don't want the homes to be reduced to anything in my neighborhood. I want the value to stay where they are. And So they reduced it to 450, and it sat on the market for, I think it was 2 more weeks. So then they reduced it to 420. And of course, everybody and their mother and father wants to buy this house. And it's under contract. But it's funny, we may have to even have a training where we're just showing some of these pictures of the homes that stay on the market for a long time. It's unfortunate that the house is going for potentially 420, maybe a little bit more. Because from what I've seen, it's got an updated kitchen. It has some dated bathrooms, but I feel that it wasn't priced well initially. And it really hurt the sale. So my neighbor was just texting me earlier, and she said, I asked them how much did they sell the house for? And he said he didn't want to tell her. So
Mm,
it just goes to show, you can't always win the listing. Trust me, I knocked on the door. I had the conversation with him. I talked about in the beginning, um, I talked about, our mindset. I talked about preparation, but I talked about taking action. And I remember wanting to go over there when I'm hesitant to go to a property. I always think of Shay. I'm like, what would Shay do? That's kind of the mentality that I have. What would Shay do? And so I just walked over there. I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to say, but I just walked over there, had my realtor shirt on, and I didn't ask them about the sale at first. It was just to have the conversation. So it came up because I have a big R on my shirt. And so, let's try to be bold and intentional. And, we can't take an advantage of an opportunity that we didn't even allow ourselves to have. So I'd rather say I don't have the listing, even though I went over there and I tried, but I would be feeling terrible if I'd never said anything and didn't get the listing. So it ended up being a friend of the family who was a realtor. And it's just unfortunate because I think the house shows well. It's just unfortunate because it wasn't priced well in the beginning. So they're not happy sellers.
okay, yeah, wow. Um, okay, so one more time, is there any additional questions or anything that anyone else wanted to share? Is there anything, did you get anything out of this training that you think that you'll be able to use? Is there anyone who wants to share anything in that nature?
Well, I always get something out of all trainings. And tonight, with Angela's training, I like that graph and the tier. That's what she refers to it as, a tier with her clients. And when you were just talking about you didn't get the listing because it was a family friend. And then if you think about it, sometimes with the family friend, it's like, I don't know if it helps them or hurts them, because maybe you would have been the one to tell them declutter, take some of this stuff out of the house. That may have been one of the reasons why the house sat so long, because it was so much stuff in the house. So I just wanted to say that, but you did a great job as usual. And I'll be taking a lot of these points going forward to my listings, and procuring a lot more. I'm going to put that out in the universe.
Right. And just like, I mean, you have to be bold. You have to get out there. You have to be bold. You definitely won't get it if you don't even approach anyone. So really, and that is Mr. Porter. I mean, why not be bold? I guess I'm sure is his thought. But yeah, so thank you again, Angela. Is there anyone else who wanted to share anything as far as what they may have gotten from this evening's training? Okay.
I have another
Like to
question,
say?
Angela.
Oh, go ahead.
So my question to you, do you tell them to depersonalize the house, like, take down the personal pictures, the art, and things like that?
So it's funny. I have some buyers who they see pictures and they think, oh, that's so cute. I like what people have done. I personally I prepare my sellers to move. The goal is
Right.
for them to sell their home and to move. So I usually tell them, start with your personal items. They're fragile, pack them up nicely. And I have them remove all of them.
The
Yeah,
pictures and stuff like that. Because that's what I was thinking too. Because I know that even back in the day, when I was first out of real estate school, and when I first started doing listings, or going on listing appointments and stuff like that, that was one of the things that I learned, is that they would, this woman that I worked with, her name was Karen, and she would say, you have them to personalize the house, take all their stuff out, because it's not, you got to be, you're thinking forward. It's not my house anymore, so you want it as basic as possible, but you want it nice still.
yes.
But yeah.
Yes.
So Darlene, I know one thing, I don't emphasize too much, remove all your pictures. There was a time where I was taught that you had them to depersonalize it. But that goes for, there's a lady who has a Barbie collection. She's got a wall of Barbie dolls. And I tell her, those things seem very valuable. You should pack those up right. You should pack those up right away and make sure, because they're of so much value, we want to protect them. So I get them to remove everything. And the goal is to pack up. If you're motivated, you're going to pack up the things. And I tell them to start with your personal things. Another rule I have is, of course, these are all suggestions. But when it comes to surface areas, I tell them to clear all surface areas. And like, well, if they want to leave an alarm clock, if they want to leave a photo, I tell them they're allowed to have no more than 2 items on the surface. So they have a lamp and they're like, well, I can only put 1 other item. And I said, well, it's my suggestion, but you should probably start packing those things up so you're getting ready for a move. And it's more so focused on the move in order to get them to remove some of the clutter. If you go into any room in your home and you remove everything off of a piece of furniture and leave 1 item, it's going to show better regardless of whether you live there or whether you're selling your home. We leave those things because we lived there. And if we're transitioning from no longer living to this home, and if they're as motivated as I am, we're removing all those items. And the same thing for in the room. If you have a bed and 2 pieces of furniture and anything else, I'm suggesting either move them to another room, and I'm trying to keep, no more than 4 pieces of furniture to a room. I'm not putting so much emphasis on this so that, I'm tearing their whole house apart. But you'd be surprised at, if you put the emphasis on moving, they're open to the suggestions instead of me saying, well, a buyer might not like, your Barbie collection or your Cabbage Patch collection that's, on 5 shelves in your guest bedroom. So it's just, and it doesn't have to be something that someone might not agree. It could be a sports collection, I just start asking them to pack away those valuables.
But even if the house doesn't have as much stuff in it, it's giving the buyer the mindset if this is almost move-in ready. They come in there and they see all this stuff. It's like, okay, they're trying to determine how long it's going to take them to get rid of all the stuff. So if all the stuff is gone ahead of time, their mind, when they're going in and looking at this listing, it's, oh, this is almost move-in ready.
Yeah, so I have some, I'll have some clients who say, well, I want to leave these things outside. I think the next person may want them. And I go by the rule of thumb. You're allowed to have, my suggestion is to have 3 items outside. I don't know, I'll just come up with it. And it has worked, with so many other listings, and then just different things like that, where let's pack it up and get ready to move. And that seems to work better than me trying to convince them that they have too much clutter in their home. So even like in the kitchen, we have all these appliances, from air fryer to toaster to, I don't know, if people still have electric can openers, sometimes they have a micro, I don't know. There's so many different appliances. We have coffee, we have these frap type devices to make all these special coffees. And I tell them
The Keurigs, that's what they're doing now, the Keurigs.
I tell them, which 3 things would you like to keep on the counter? You can still use the others, but then tuck them away. These are kind of petty. You don't have to do all this, but
oh no, I would be doing that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because
Yeah.
that's it shows best that way. You,
Right.
yeah. I actually have a box in my garage of staging props that I use. So, no, but it shows better like that.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, Angela. We appreciate again all of your tips and training for this evening. And we just want to make sure that we kind of, if you need to, absolutely refer, because Angela did mention about this morning's training, so, or this afternoon's training rather. So we want to make sure that if you haven't had an opportunity, or if you missed out on it, to go back and go through that training. And then also this training will be on the on YouTube as well for you all to take advantage of. And if there is nothing else, if there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and we'll end the training for this evening.